Hey everybody, Invisible Katana here with my spoiler review for Shazam. As you guys can see, if you happen to see my spoiler-free review, I mentioned I was going to do it on the same day, but it's a different day. It's the next day, actually. Just didn't end up doing it yesterday, so I was like, alright, well, I want to do it. I still didn't want to wait, like a week to do it or anything like that, so still doing it super early, just posting it late. I guess technically I'm doing it early, posting it on time, because I'm still going to wait to post it until like the week the movie is actually coming out. But I had a day to think about it. Even saw another movie just in my review for Us, so you guys can check that out. But man, this was such a fun movie. I really loved it. And to get, man, it's so hard to like know where I want to start with this, but I guess I can start with the beginning of the movie because this is a random thing that doesn't even matter to the plot of the actual story. But I forgot to mention it in my spoiler-free review because I did that spoiler-free review twice, and the second time I forgot to mention the opening of this movie has, as some people will know him, Lionel Luthor from Smallville, and I thought that was like the funniest thing ever because I was like, I can't believe they got this actor back because I don't know the guy's actual name unfortunately, but he was Lionel Luthor in Smallville for the whole series. Like he was in that series for like I think 7 out of the 12 seasons they had, however many seasons that show had. He was in like 7 of those seasons. He was there for a long time as Lex Luthor's father, and it was just like. It was so weird to see him there because I'm like, he's such a staple in my head, at least, as someone who watched Smallville from beginning to end. It was just like, it's so weird to see him it's weird to see him in general in anything because I'm like, I always see him as Lionel Luthor, but it's like to see him in a DC movie, it just made it even weirder because I'm like, that's so crazy to see him in a DC movie, but he's not Lionel Luthor, even though he was for like 7 freaking years in Smallville. So that was super crazy. Of course, the main villain, the actor for the main villain, was also in the DC movie, even though it was super CG'd. He was, whatever the dude's name from Green Lantern. I can't even remember the villain's name right. Sinestro from Green Lantern. But that was different. I was like, that was one movie that I don't even think of. That wasn't like 7 years worth of seeing this guy's face and seeing this actor as Lionel Luthor. So that was really funny to me when the movie started. And it was super odd because I was like, oh, he's the same character still. He was a douchebag of a father. I was like, that's funny. He's the exact same guy, just technically not Lionel Luthor, but played basically the same character. It was really funny, and he ended up being the old rich guy. So it's like he's basically Lionel Luthor. He's the father of a different villain instead of being the father of Lex Luthor from Smallville. So it was super funny seeing that because I'm just like, this is really weird for me seeing him in a DC movie, and he's also a douchebag father. But it's not Smallville, and he's not Lionel Luthor. So it was just really funny, and so I just want to talk about that for like a split second. I feel like that'll affect a ton of people, because Smallville was on for so long. A lot of people seeing this are going to be like, that's Lionel Luthor, and he's also, like I said, douchebag character and everything. It just makes him like, he is being Lionel Luthor, but in everything but name, and it's just super funny. So that's a good thing to start with, because I forgot to talk about that, even though I wouldn't have spoiled it, but I wanted to mention that in my spoiler-free review, and I just forgot when I redid the review. But other than that, which has, like I said, nothing to actually do with the movie, the ending, best thing ever. I was so happy because the whole movie I was like, I would love to see that happen, but they won't do that because it's the first movie. Because you don't do that in the first movie because that's insane. That's too sweet to happen in the first movie. And then it's like, well, what do you do with the second movie then? You got like 5 of these kids, or 6 kids, all of whom have superpowers. Now you got the Shazam family, and it's just like, well, they aren't gonna do that because then, they're gonna, Black Adam's no big deal. And it's like, no, that's not true, because Black Adam, comic wise, is actually, this movie is the story from DC Rebirth, where all the kids do have to fight Black Adam. Like, it takes all of them in order to defeat Black Adam. They just switched it in with Savannah instead, and like, so it's that comic book originally was Black Adam, and they all have to team up to beat him. And I feel like it's the same thing. They could still do that in the sequel because it'll just be, even though it's still one character, instead of, it made sense for them to happen at the end of the movie because they all end up fighting the different sins. With Black Adam, he's so insanely powerful. He knows the power so well. He's done that for such a long time. It makes sense that it would still take all of the kids just to take him down, because even though it's a bunch of them, you have a bunch of people who don't know how to use the power versus one master. It's like, well, that doesn't mean anything. You're a bunch of average kids. Yeah, you got the super strength, but it's like, I've been fighting for centuries, or crazy stuff like that. So it works, because when it happened, I was like, well, they did it, which just blew my mind in general because I was like, this is freaking amazing. Just to see all the different characters in the costumes and they had all the colors. So you had, and I was even thinking about that. It was funny. I was thinking about it when I was watching. I was like, okay, well, he could be the one who does green because he's wearing green right now. I was like, oh, but he's wearing green too. So I don't know what they would do with those two colors. And I was legitimately looking at the kids like, who would get what color? Because they weren't specifically keeping them in certain colors. There would be like hints of that color. So I was trying to figure it out. I was like, maybe they would do it with this person. Maybe that person would be that color and stuff like that. So it was kind of funny watching it. And I was like, oh, I guess I was right with those characters. But I loved it. I thought it was great. I mentioned in my spoiler-free review, they did like the nerdy gamer stuff because the kid who played games all the time, when he shoots lightning, he says like Hadouken, and then he says like fatality and stuff. And I was like, I'd probably do that too. Like I do that stuff now, and I'm not like I just say it just because I'm a nerd. I'm not fighting anybody. I'm not shooting lightning from my hands. I'm just doing stupid stuff around the apartment. And I just say dumb nerdy gamer stuff because I'm a nerd like that. So I was like, I love that because I probably do that too. So that was fun. I like the way they did the visuals for the characters' powers. I don't know if this was. I think it was meant to be a reference, and I probably wouldn't have spoiled it anyway. But they say Red Cyclone a bunch in the movie. That's like one of the fake names that they give Shazam, and I think that is a different character because I was trying to remember if Red Cyclone was like an earlier name for Red Tornado because that's an actual character. Because I was like, is Red Cyclone like his original name, like from back in the day or something? I think there is a character named Red Cyclone because Red Tornado does exist, and Red Cyclone could be a different robot or it could be the older name for that character. I just don't know. But I'm like, I've heard Red Cyclone enough. Maybe it's because that's the confusion with Red Tornado is that some people call him Red Cyclone. So I don't know. I think that was meant to be that reference because I'm like, I know I've heard that a bunch before. And it's like, I don't know if that was the old name for a tornado or if people just do that like in the cartoons where they call him the wrong name. It's like, it's not Red Cyclone, it's Red Tornado. It's just, similar thing, but that's not the character's name. So I was like, I feel like that's why they kept saying Red Cyclone, which I thought was actually a cool name. I was like, that's actually not a terrible name for the character. But I thought that was interesting. I was like, okay, I felt like that was a reference to Red Tornado, as an actual character. But I love the visuals. I mentioned in my spoiler-free review, I love the suit. Like actually seeing it on the big screen, I was like, that actually looks amazing. Especially at the end, seeing all the other people's costumes and stuff looks super cool. Especially with it being the different colors. Like I like the red, but like I was like, man, like blue is my favorite color. So I was like, blue is awesome. The gray was probably my favorite because I was like, I didn't expect it to look as cool as it did, and I think it was because you could see the textures like in everyone's costumes. Like even though it was like their full outfits, you can see like all the lines within the costume. So I was like, for some reason that makes it look cooler to me because you can see like literally within like the little squares of the stitching, like how light hits certain spots differently. And I was like, for some reason that makes all the colors look a little bit better. So I really enjoyed that. But I thought gray looked the coolest. But I thought they did a fantastic job with all the outfits. Like they look like they do. If you look up the the characters from the comic books, which so few people know Shazam. I doubt anybody even knows that those kids that even exists as a thing in the comics, like the Shazam family. So I thought that it's kind of funny thinking of that because my whole thing with the spoiler-free review is like, finally people are gonna know who the heck Shazam even is, and now it's like, I didn't even think of it at that time. It's like people probably people barely know Shazam. Who the F knows? It's like 1 in 100 people know Shazam. Like 1 in 1,000 people knew that there was even a like Shazam family and that his foster siblings actually got powers too at some point. So it's just kind of funny seeing that, and it's like, well, cool. Now everyone will know who they are. They'll be all over that from comics. Like once this movie comes out, like if you're not in the comics, but you'll notice patterns. Like for people that read comics, whenever something big happens in the movies, they start to change stuff in the comics to reflect that. Like Guardians of the Galaxy is literally the best example ever because they are nothing like they are in the comic books, or they weren't anything like they were in the comic books when that movie came out. And then once that happened, everything from those movies was like the new origin story for the Guardians of the Galaxy. Like the costumes became the ones from the movies. Rocket Raccoon was actually British. Initially, like if you go back and play like Marvel vs. Capcom 3, they have like him as a British character and stuff like that. All that stuff changed once the movie came out, and it was like, holy crap, they were literally nothing. And then that movie like blew up. Everything in the comics was like, well, it's just the movie version now. That's pretty much all that exists in those characters if you go to it now. So it's kind of funny. You still get like the old school designs, like especially if you play the new Marvel vs. Capcom. Gamora looks like she does in the comic book, so she has like not red, but like yellow eyes, eyeliner, stuff like that. So certain images aren't exactly like the movie, but pretty much story wise, they were just like, yep, everything from the movie. That's pretty much what happened. There's still slight differences there, but Once that became famous, that's what they became in the comics and every show, ever since, all the cartoons. So once this movie officially comes out, it's like, yeah, the Shazam family is going to be like all over the effing place in the comics and the cartoons. They're going to be like super boosted up. So I'm looking forward to that because I just like Shazam, so I think it's sweet. But love what they did at the end. I thought that was a great twist that like I said, they aren't going to do that for the first movie because that's too cool. They aren't going to do that thing. They'll save that, for later. And then, once they had him go back and he's like, man, I got to figure out how to save my family. And then, he recalls what the wizard said to him. And it's like, my throne, my thrones of my brothers and sisters are empty now. And then, I'm the last person left. And it was like, they're about to do it. And I was just like, this is insane. Like, he's actually, like they showed the flashback and I was like, it's going to happen. Like, it's seriously about to happen. And they made it funny too, because they yell his name Billy. And I was like, that's pretty funny. But then they all say Shazam. And I was like, they already did it. Because I was thinking, I was like, man, who would they get for the actors to do this? And then I was thinking of all this stuff while watching the movie. I was like, what would they do for this? And who would they get for that person? And like, how would this play out? And what would they do with that? And I was thinking of all this stuff watching the movie, because I was like, it's not going to happen. They haven't done it already. I have to wait a few years to see it happen. And then the end comes along and I was like, they already did it. They got all the costumes. They got all the characters. Everything was already done. And it looked good the whole way through. Like, you have the slow motion of the characters, like, run on the Ferris wheel and catching stuff and flying around. It just looks so good. And the guy, I don't remember the guy's name, but the guy that they got to play the adult version of, Billy's brother, whose name I also cannot remember. It was super funny seeing that. I was like, they picked the perfect dude for that, because they actually look identical to me. And I was like, that's funny. Like, they just look identical and everything. I was like, that was perfect casting for that. But loved it the whole way through. I was like, that's just super sweet. I just thought that was awesome. So I was super happy with the ending. Very funny when they have Savannah, he's yelling and stuff, and they're like a mile away, and it's like, I can't hear what you're saying or anything like that. So I thought that was funny. The scene with the little Batman toys, like, I'm Batman, it's like, get him Batman. All the references and stuff were great. The second post-credit scene was really good, where it's like, of course I can't speak to fish. What are you going to do with that anyway? And it's like, I don't know, command an army and stuff. And he's, his brother's wearing like the Aquaman shirt. And he's like, oh, well, that's not that cool anyway. So, they make the jokes that everyone's always made about Aquaman and stuff like that. They make references to, like the newer Aquaman and how popular he is, like with the end credit sequence, where it's like Shazam's standing in line waiting to do autographs. And it's like, where is everybody? And they're all over, Aquaman and stuff. And it's more Jason Momoa than it is Aquaman that makes the character so popular. So I thought that was just really funny. And I was like, I love that they did all that. Shazam steals the Batmobile. He goes to prom with Wonder Woman, all that stuff. The girls steal something from Flash, I can't remember. They just run past them, stuff like that. So everything they did, I just thought was great. They have, all the Justice League characters. The only one that I don't think was in there was actually Cyborg. I don't think Cyborg was in that end credit sequence, but it was just really funny. I thought that was pretty awesome, and just the movie as a whole was really good. So love the way they did the ending, love the end credits, love the post credit sequences. The first one, of course, being the story for going into the sequel. I have no idea who the Worm is. I'm not too familiar with everything going into the mythos of Shazam. I'm really only familiar with Shazam himself and Billy Batson, and just certain elements here and there. I know he's cooler than Superman, always has been, in my personal opinion. They won't do it, but that's the movie we need to see is Superman v Shazam. They won't do it. They've already, at the end of the movie, they already have Superman like pop up and stuff like that. So they already introduced the fact that he ran into him and he knows who Superman is. So I was like, we won't ever. They might do something. They might revert back to evil Superman for a minute. Something happens. Maybe they'll do some Poison Ivy stuff. That's from one of the cartoons, from one of the Batman cartoons, where Poison Ivy uses like kryptonite, and she laces it with the poison that she uses to infect people, and she controls Superman. They could pull that off, and I would love to see Shazam versus Superman, because one of my favorite things ever is Justice League Unlimited, where they have Shazam versus Superman, and he uses lightning to like beat Superman because he holds him and he says Shazam a bunch, and he like strikes lightning on him. I would love to see that done in a freaking movie. So maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. Who knows what's gonna happen there? But love the ending, love the credits. Our villain, I mentioned, like his first sequence, like as a full-on villain, when he goes to kill his brother and his dad, was freaking great. I was like, okay, villain stuff, normal speech. It is what it is. We're gonna get what we're gonna get. He's gonna say some stuff. I figured he'd kill them, but I thought it was gonna be more drawn out, and it was just like, how about this? Like ask the 8 ball if you can beat me, if you can take me down, stuff like that. And then I thought they were gonna go, have a back and forth. I thought they were gonna do the very normal thing. His brother was gonna try to push him, like he'd push him, and he literally wouldn't move, and it'd be like, how could he not move? Like, I know I'm not like super strong, but anyone in any normal position, if you're pushed and you aren't expecting it, you go back. I thought they were gonna do that. He'd try to push his brother, and then they would, he would like punch him really hard or something crazy, and it was like, nope, boom, and he just threw him out a window, and I was like, holy crap, that was quick. I thought this was gonna be more talking, more villain stuff, and he just grabs him and just launches him across the table, and he like blows through the window, and he's just gone. And it was just like, that's it. He's gone. That is all there is to it. And then he lets all the demons out, and they just start eating people. Like I think the first demon does like eat someone's head off, and I was like, that's where I was thinking like, man, if they went one rating up, there would just be blood and guts all over that from place in this scene. Because people are getting ripped to shreds. Like, there's no blood whatsoever, like, on the glass or anything like that. But I was like, if they did rated R, they would have had blood all over the place. And I was surprised they didn't, like, at all. Even though it is PG-13, I still would have thought they would have put, like, some blood in that scene just because it's like, okay, it's not really showing the people get ripped apart, but you'd still see, blood splatters and stuff like that. So I was admittedly shocked that there was no blood whatsoever. It was just people, like, banging on the glass. So I was shocked that there was like no blood whatsoever in this movie outside of like people getting punched. Like Zachary Levi, when he first gets beat up, his nose bleeds a little bit, and I think the same goes for Savannah during some of the scenes where he gets beat up and like the batarang hits him so he bleeds. And it was like, man, I'm so shocked that there is so little blood in this movie for some of the crazy stuff that goes down with like especially with the monsters during that opening scene. But it was good. I was like, holy crap, that I wish every villain opening scene would be like that, where it's just like, all right, we've probably got like maybe like 2 more minutes on this, and then just boom, something crazy happens, and he kills the first person off just like instantaneously, and it's just like, oh snap, this scene just instantly switched up, and it it went from like 2 to 15 right off of that one move, and he just tosses him out the window, and then everyone gets wiped out. And I was actually shocked. I thought he would kill his father himself, just like he did his brother. I thought it would just be a much slower version. And then he just leaves. He's like, oh, gluttony, you can have him. Or it was greed. He was like, greed, go ahead, you can take him down. And then he just leaves his dad to get, eaten. And like, it jumps on him, like he's leaving the room. And it just jumps on him, and it's like, once again, like there's no blood, but it's basically like ripping him apart and stuff. And I was like, holy crap, this is a pretty nuts sequence. So I definitely love that opening for him as a full-on villain. I thought that was a great scene to have, for that character, because I thought it was just really well done, where it went from, what you normally expect when the character is going back to people that treated them horribly. They talk to them, they know they have the power to defeat them, but typically it's done at a much slower pace. Like it's always done where the villain goes with the intention to kill them, but it's always done reactionary. They always go in like, I'm going to kill these people, but nothing happens until the other people make a move, because it was like it was always like his dad and his brother were crappy to him. He went there to take them down, but we'd still see them as the horrible people that they are. Like his brother would throw a punch first or something like that, and then he would still be the bad guy. But it's like in that little moment, it's still that revenge. It's still that little kid. But it was like, nope, he went past all that crap. His brother didn't throw a punch yet or anything. He was just like, yeah, I can give you a hand, and he just tosses him out the window. I was like, oh man, they didn't do the reactionary thing. He went for it. So I was like, that's cool. I thought that was a nice little twist on the expectation of what they do with those types of villains, where they go in for that revenge, but they're still that hurt person. And it was like, he's still hurt, but he didn't react. He acted, and he just launches his brother out the window. Everyone else was just screwed. They were just there, and I was like, well, that just sucks for all you people. You just get eaten by demons now. And he really only went there for his dad and his brother. But I thought it was cool. Great opening sequence. The montage was really good, which I think everyone expected that to be good, because that's what they show off in the trailers. So that I thought was really good and definitely funny. We get some extra content from that and extended versions in general. So all of that was good. Them fighting in the little convenience store I thought was funny, and then them getting the beer and they try it and they hate it, and I was like, yep, everybody hates beer when you first drink it. So then they get all the normal snacks, and I was like, that's exactly what I would do, because I personally just like I can't stand beer. And I just thought that was super funny. They're just like, oh my goodness, that's horrible. And then they just get like hot Cheetos and jerky and stuff. And I was like, that's pretty funny. So I love that. Him calling the woman like an old, like, hey, don't take this old lady's purse and stuff like that. I thought was super funny. She was like, I'm probably the same age as you. And he kept saying like old lady and stuff like that. So I thought that was really funny. But all the way through a very entertaining movie for sure. So I'm excited for this movie to come out. I definitely want to see it again. I'm probably take my little cousins to go check it out. I don't feel like there's too much else to really talk about because they don't show anything as far as the Black Adam stuff. I did see Dwayne Johnson's name is like an executive producer, so I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I guess it's because they already had it settled that he's going to be Black Adam. So, but I was still shocked, like, oh, his name's actually like in the credits as like an executive producer. But looking forward to that. I was really hoping we would see some hints since they announced that like so long ago, but we knew he wouldn't be in the first movie. I was really shocked that they didn't have that as a post-credit sequence where it was like, oh, here's Black Adam, in some way, shape, or form. So I'm very curious how that's going to play out, what they're going to be doing. There's some elements with this character where he's kind of like Doom from Marvel, where it's like he can go off and he has like his own country and stuff like that. So I don't know if that's what they're doing with him right now, where he's already got his own country, or if they're going to start off like kind of normal Black Adam, where he's, I don't know where he normally comes from, but he's just there, and then it's like, oh, Shazam, I got to take this dude out and be, the best, the strongest there is. Kind of like what Savannah did. That's like some of the lines fit perfectly for Black Adam, where it's like, oh, you're better than me and they chose you and stuff like that. Except with Black Adam, it's just like, oh, so you're my replacement. I'm going to prove that I'm going to prove that the wizard was wrong in choosing you because you're not even strong enough to beat me, who is the original, Shazam. Stuff like that. So I was really surprised that we didn't get like any clues whatsoever, but I'm still super excited for what they're going to do next. And they'll probably have Savannah, working with the worm, the caterpillar, and then that's how they'll run into Black Adam, who may or may not be locked up, stuff like that. That's probably how it'll be. But definitely looking forward to the next movie. Totally love this. So happy. Best twist ever at the end where they do the Shazam family. Because like I said, I was just like, they're not gonna do it. That's too sweet. That's too much for that ending. And I was so wrong. And they actually do it. And I was like, that is fantastic. Because then we can have all sorts of stuff, going into the sequel. We can have it where Shazam does get knocked out. Something random happens and the other kids have to take over. And, little stuff like that. So I just thought it was great. I was like, it makes me even more excited for the sequel. And I think it'll do the same for everyone, whether you want it to happen or not. Once it does, it's like, crap, that's good. So, possibilities for the future, action-wise, comedy-wise, the characters being funny as their hero counterparts and, trying to figure stuff out as, like, the kid versions of themselves. So I'm really looking forward to what they do with whatever's going to happen in the future. And plus with them having the kids, since there's going to be, however many movies before the official Shazam sequel, you got like 6 characters with superpowers. It's like, if they hear anything, they can take off and help. So they could easily show up as a team, in some other DC movie. I doubt that'll happen because, you have like 6 Supermen coming in. So don't think that'll really be the case, but it's interesting because now it's like, it's the normal question, like with all Marvel movies, it's like, well, why aren't these characters here? Why aren't they there? At least in this, it's like they're way off in Philadelphia, even though we technically don't know where Metropolis and Gotham are, even though they're right next to each other, which makes no sense. That's just not how it works in DC. But that's what they did for the movies. Like, oh, they're just right across the river. It's like, that's not where they are in the comics. But anyway, they're like officially in Philadelphia, which I thought was also cool. I was like, it's nice that they're in like a legit place and they make all the Rocky references too. So that was sweet. But yeah, I'm super excited for they're headed for this. But with the movie officially coming out, or at least being out whenever I decide to post this, I would love to know your thoughts on this film as a whole. Of course, my big question is, what did you guys think of the reveal of the Shazam family? If you knew about it from the comics, were you expecting them to do it? Were you hoping like me, but you were just like, I would love to see it, but there's no way they'll do it in the first movie? Did you think they just wouldn't do it at all because it just didn't make sense to you, or stuff like that? I would love to know your thoughts on that epic reveal at the end where it's like, nope, end of the movie. Yep, here's everybody. Here's the whole Shazam family. All said and done. They're ready for the sequel. So I would love to know your thoughts on that specifically, but definitely want to know what you guys thought about the movie as a whole, how you think it fits into the DC, movie universe, where you'd rank it. I mentioned in my spoiler-free review, I would put this as my number 1 for sure, with Wonder Woman being number 2. But yeah, I would love to know where you guys rank it, what you thought of the movie as a whole, and definitely what you thought about the ending and them actually throwing in the whole Shazam family and just, now having all those characters right off the bat by the end of the film. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.